16 scientists gave up, but a humble secretary revealed a life-changing solution in 3 minutes. Clara's hands trembled as she stirred the bubbling pot of soup. The warmth of the kitchen wrapped around her like a hug, but dark clouds loomed both outside the window and in the hearts of Willow Creek. She could hear the muffled voices rising from the community center next door, a chorus of despair mixing with the sharp clinks of metal chairs. Every thump against the floor felt like a crack in the foundation of her once thriving town, now desperately tangled in a web of financial ruin and a toxic water crisis. 16 scientists walked away, and all they left was what feels like a death sentence for us. One voice shouted. Clara's chest tightened at the truth of those words. Her father, John, whose proud veteran shoulders now slumped, relied on the very water that made them weak. Families like theirs were in crisis. The last vestiges of hope hung by a thread, and here she was, just a humble secretary, trying to stitch together a community coming apart at the seams. Caught between stirring the soup and listening, Clara recalled her grandmother's wisdom. The remedies and strengths nestled deep within the earth. It dawned on her that the answers weren't lost in laboratories, but buried among her roots. As she let the fragrant steam fill her lungs, her heart raced with determination. What if the forgotten traditions could breathe life back into Willow Creek? What if she could try? It felt absurd yet exhilarating. The meeting crescendoed, voices escalating as tempers flared. Clara felt the sparks ignite inside her. Could she stand before them, a lone voice against the tide? Gathering her resolve, she wiped her hands on her apron and made her way to the community center, the sound of her father's favorite soup beckoning her to action. When Clara finally spoke, uncertainty flipped her stomach. Maybe we try using natural filters, simple techniques passed down through generations. The room fell silent. The elite folks, lawyers and entrepreneurs, exchanged glances, their brows knotted in disbelief. You're just a secretary. One sneered. But an ember sparked as she continued, her voice rising with each word, her faith rooted in the land, a land she had always known would provide. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Clara spoke, the tide turned. People exchanged glances, murmurs rippling through the crowd like a shared heartbeat. Hope began to blossom in their eyes. Slowly, her neighbors, people who had once barely acknowledged her, started stepping forward, pledging their support, but dark clouds remained. Clara's estranged brother, Mike, burst through the doors, frustration painted across his face. What are you doing here, Clara? We don't need your old remedies. We need money, not your grandmother's stories. His pride clawed at Clara, and she realized that beyond battling the community's fears, she had to face her own brother's refusal to acknowledge his struggle. Time crept by. Clara felt the weight of impending failure press on her shoulders, the distance growing between her and Mike, between the town and an uncertain future. Their fragile unity began to tremble as Clara pushed forward against distrust, determined to stitch together their frayed bonds. Would she have the strength to bring everyone together, or would this be yet another lost cause? As Clara stood before her town, hope twinkled in the shimmer of the soup pot, a beacon of possibility, but the real battle had only just begun. Clara stood at the front of the community center, her heart racing as she took in the faces that surrounded her. There was a mixture of skepticism and a flicker of something she dared to hope was belief. She glanced at her brother Mike, who still wore anger like a cloak. She swallowed hard, taking a step closer to her neighbors. Look, she started, her voice steadying, I know times are tough, but I believe we can do something. We can try filtering the water naturally. It worked before, it just needs our hands to bring it back to life. A hushed murmur swept through the crowd, but she pressed on. Every single one of us comes from families who have wrestled with this land and its challenges. My grandmother taught me that nature has the answers if we listen well enough. There was a moment of silence, heavy and loaded. Clara could sense the weight of doubt lingering, but also a flicker of curiosity. This time, she wasn't just speaking to the elite, she was speaking to her family, her community. What do we have to lose? She asked, feeling the fire in her belly. If we don't try, we'll only be waiting for someone else to save us. We've got strength, we've got history, why not use both? Mike's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, but then his walls shot back up. This isn't a fairy tale, Clara. You can't just wish things to be better. We need money. We need investment. Not stories from the past. A few voices echoed Mike's frustration, but Clara pushed back against a rising tide of doubt. And how successful have all those scientists been? They've turned their backs. This town needs us. It needs our history and our heart. Then, something shifted. An elderly woman named Mrs. Simmons, who Clara remembered from school as a seamstress of remarkable talent, raised her voice. I remember when my mother used the river's sand to filter water after the last drought. It worked. Another neighbor, young Tom, jumped in. I remember my dad showing us how to build rain barrels. We could collect water with what we've got. Slowly, pockets of applause rippled through the room. Clara felt her heart swell. Together, their collective memories spun a web of determination around her, solidifying her resolve. Let us meet tomorrow morning, Clara suggested, her voice firm. We can figure out what materials we can gather. We can pool our knowledge. We can do this together. Cheers erupted in parts of the room, but Clara couldn't ignore the lingering shadows. Mike stood apart, arms crossed tightly. The conflicting emotions in his gaze, a mixture of pride and disappointment, tore at her, but they had ignited a spark. As people began to pair off, forming small groups to discuss plans, Clara felt a rush of hope. Even Mike was there, although now he seemed unsure, caught between his bitterness and the budding might of community spirit. Clara. A voice called her back to the present. It was Tommy, waving excitedly. Can we use my family's land for testing? I've got a spot near the creek, it's perfect. She nodded enthusiastically, but her gaze drifted back to Mike. What if he never came around? What if he continued to drown in doubt? There was still a battle before her, a deep divide she had to bridge. As the dusk settled around Willow Creek, Clara felt a sense of calm. They were collectively stronger, even if their lives were different. They had hope, but just as she breathed a sigh of relief, her phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen, jolting her back to the present. It was a notice from the town council, an emergency meeting was called for the next day. Her stomach dropped, they might shut everything down before it even started. What now? She whispered to herself. Would they allow her to fight for her community, or would they simply pull the rug out from under their feet? The battle was far from over, and tomorrow would test the limits of her resolve. Clara woke to the light of dawn creeping through her bedroom window. Sunbeams streamed in, casting golden patches across her room, but she felt more weight than warmth. The message from last night nagged at her. An emergency meeting. What could the town council be planning? Her heart sank as doubt stirred within her. She quickly dressed and made her way to the kitchen, where the smell of coffee filled the air. Mike was already at the table, rubbing his temples. He looked up as Clara entered, his expression weary. You could have called me last night, Clara, he said, a mix of concern and frustration threading his voice. I know. She paused, searching for the right words. I thought they might listen. We need them to. They need to listen. Mike interrupted, his voice rising. This isn't just about listening, it's about getting things done. You can't just charm your way through this with nostalgia and dreams. Clara felt the heat rise to her cheeks. He was upset, yes, but she couldn't let his bitterness cloud her vision. Mike, if we don't try something, we'll be stuck waiting for a miracle that's never going to come. We have to make our own way. His expression softened for a moment, but the walls were back, stronger than before. Good luck with that, he said, turning back to his coffee. With a heavy heart, Clara left the house and walked down the quiet street toward the community center, the chilly morning air nipping at her skin. She took deep breaths, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Every step seemed to echo her anxiety. What if the council refused them? What if they dismissed her ideas as crazy? As she entered the community center, she found a small group already gathered. Tom, Mrs. Simmons, and a few others were flipping through old pamphlets and notes, whispering excitedly. Clara felt an immediate sense of relief. This was her team, her community. Hey, Clara. Tom waved her over. We were thinking about the materials we have right here. You won't believe what Mrs. Simmons dug up. With a twinkle in her eye, Mrs. Simmons held up an old, dusty book. It's full of old methods. Techniques our families used back when. We might not need any fancy equipment. Just some good old-fashioned know-how. Clara's spirit lifted. This is perfect. We can show the council we're ready to take action. But in the back of her mind, doubts still lingered. What would happen when they came face to face with the council? Would they see her community's determination, or would they be met with anger and skepticism? She cleared her throat to speak, wanting to harness the energy in the room. Today is going to be about showing we're serious, she announced. But we must stick together, no matter what happens later. If they push back, we have to push back harder. Nods and murmurs of agreement came in response. Clara felt the bond tightening among them, a flickering flame of unity forging paths through their shared history. Moments later, as they began brainstorming ideas and sketching out a plan, the atmosphere was electric with purpose. But then, just as laughter erupted alongside shared stories, the door burst open. A figure stood silhouetted against the light, a council member, frowning deeply. Clara, they said, their voice cutting through the laughter. The council is waiting for you. It's time. Clara swallowed hard. Her heart raced, a mix of fear and excitement bubbling inside her. She glanced around the room, her eyes catching Mike's, who had just entered, arms crossed again. The moment felt suspended. Would she step forward into the uncertain battle ahead, or would she let fear pull her back? Taking a deep breath, she squared her shoulders. Let us show them who we are, Clara said, her voice steady, ready for whatever was to come. As she walked toward the door, a thought echoed in her mind. She had the strength of her community behind her, and they were ready to fight. But what if what awaited them was more than just opposition? What if it changed everything they thought they knew? Clara stepped through the door, the cool air outside doing little to quell the heat of anxiety rising in her chest. The faded banners of past town events hung around the center's entrance, each one a reminder of better days. Today, though, everything felt heavier. As she approached the council chamber, a knot twisted in her stomach. She could already hear voices buzzing inside, some familiar, some distant. But they were all part of a machine that had seemed indifferent for too long. Clara pushed the heavy wooden door open, and the room fell silent. The council members sat in an arc, their faces a mix of skepticism and expectation. Clara's heart raced as she took her seat at the table. The air was thick with tension, and Mike slid into the chair beside her, his brows deeply furrowed. Clara, members of the council, the chairperson began, clearing their throat. You're here to present your ideas about revitalizing our community. Please proceed. Clara's voice caught in her throat. She clenched her fists, feeling warmth radiate from those who stood behind her, Tom, Mrs. Simmons, and others she had grown to admire and depend on. It was time to channel their combined strength. We believe we can bring our town back, Clara began, her voice shaking but gradually gaining strength. We've gathered old techniques, methods that our families used successfully in the past. She gestured to Mrs. Simmons, who echoed her with a soft smile. It's not just about technology, it's about understanding and respecting our legacy. With each word, memories of her childhood flooded back, neighbors sharing produce from their gardens, bartering and supporting one another during hard times. She could feel the weight of history pushing her forward, but the council members exchanged skeptical glances and whispers flickered across the room, like shadows rebuffing the light. Old methods. One council member interrupted, leaning forward. You think nostalgia will solve our problems? The question cut through Clara. For a moment, she felt impossible to breathe, as if the dreams hanging in her mind were evaporating into thin air. But she pressed on. No. It's not just nostalgia. It's strength in community. It's innovation rooted in our history. For example, we can initiate community farms, workshops, and gatherings where we exchange skills and knowledge learning from each other. Suddenly, Tom stood up, his palms resting on the table. We're not asking for handouts. We're asking for a chance to help ourselves. We've been overlooked for too long. We just need your support. Clara watched as a flicker of interest sparked in the eyes of the members. One councilwoman leaned back in her chair, contemplating. The atmosphere shifted slightly, the walls felt a bit less imposing. Is that what you believe will truly work? Asked the chairperson, their voice softer now, though still cautious. Can this town, with its current resources, really make that kind of change? Clara knew this was the moment. She needed to reach deep, to share the fire that burned within her. We won't know unless we try. Change doesn't happen overnight, but small steps can lead to meaningful progress. Every successful initiative starts with hope. And we have that hope. Her words hung in the air, a palpable shift. Silence filled the room for a heartbeat, stretching into what felt like eternity. Clara's heart pounded. Would this be the moment everything changed? The chairperson exchanged glances with the other members. Clara held her breath. She could feel the weight of possibility, the urge to shout that they wouldn't back down. As the council deliberated quietly among themselves, Clara turned to Mike, who finally unclenched his arms. I don't know if they'll accept, but I'm proud of you for standing up. A soft knock on the door interrupted their tension. In stepped a town elder, Mrs. Hall, her silver hair catching the light. Excuse me, she said, her voice commanding attention. I have something to share. Clara deserves to know. Clara's stomach twisted with uncertainty. What could Mrs. Hall have to reveal? Was it news to bolster their case or something that could unravel their plans? The room fell silent again, the air thick with expectation. What could be changed in an instant? What secrets lay in wait, just out of reach? Mrs. Hall stood confidently at the entrance, her sharp blue eyes scanning the room like a lighthouse guiding a ship through tumultuous waters. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine, sensing that the elder's presence was both a blessing and a storm on the horizon. I know many of you are skeptical of the past, Mrs. Hall began, her voice resonating with the authority of experience. But I have seen the power of community firsthand. And today, I have a story that may change the way we see hope. Clara shifted in her seat, her heart racing. What story could Mrs. Hall possibly share that would sway the council? The tension in the room thickened, hanging like fog over the gathered faces. Years ago, our town was facing a drought. Crops were failing, and fear loomed like a shadow over every farmer's field. We were desperate, she said, pausing to let the memories settle. But then, a group of us neighbors gathered under the old oak tree. We pooled our resources and shared our knowledge. Not just old techniques but new ideas that emerged from our hearts. Clara leaned in closer, captivated by the elder's words. This wasn't just nostalgia, it was a precursor to transformation. During that drought, we emptied our pantries and filled our bellies together. We crafted plans for a new irrigation system, one that would conserve water and revitalize our fields. Mrs. Hall's voice swelled, stirring something untamed within Clara. With each share of our abilities, we discovered new ways to thrive. We didn't just survive, we flourished. A murmur rippled through the council, unintended sparks igniting the kindling of curiosity. Did they remember those days, the moments of unity? Clara felt hope swell in her throat, urging her to be bold alongside the elder. People like Clara, and Tom here, remind us that we can revive that spirit of cooperation and resilience, Mrs. Hall continued, locking eyes with Clara. The farming systems they speak of may feel small compared to modern solutions, but they're rooted in our community's legacy. The chairperson frowned deeply, calculating. And you believe that this model can work today? Yes. Clara chimed in, her voice steady. Today, our struggles may be different, but the essence is the same. We have to utilize what we've learned, adapt, and grow into something more than what we were. Mrs. Hall nodded in agreement, adding weight to Clara's words. It's not just about what we had, it's about what we can build together. Our neighbors, our history, our pride. We all hold pieces of the puzzle. An air of determination rippled through Clara's veins. She could see the council members shifting, their skepticism wavering as they processed this unexpected turn. But another voice cut through, slicing the hopeful air. What if it fails? You're asking us to invest in something untested. The town is in dire straits. Can you guarantee success? With that pointed question, Clara's heart sank. Moments like this demanded clarity, a beacon within confusion. She took a deep breath, voice low but assertive. Nothing is guaranteed. But I believe our shared investments will pave new paths and spark innovation, even beyond our initial plans. What is failure, after all, if not a lesson learned? If it doesn't work, then we'll adapt again. She felt the warmth of her companions beside her, a surge of strength electrifying the air. What if we take the first step together? We don't need permission to unite for a better tomorrow. We can have meetings, develop our goals, but we need an open door to begin, Tom added, his voice tinged with optimism that felt contagious. Mrs. Hall smiled, nodding with approval. Sometimes the simplest acts of unity are the strongest foundation for lasting change. As whispers swirled among the council members, Clara noticed more expressions softening, embers of what could become a fire illuminating their hopes. In that moment, she felt invincible, the walls of doubt crumbling around her. Then, too soon, the chairperson raised a hand. We will need to deliberate. This is a lot for us to consider. Stomach twisting, Clara readied herself for the waiting game. As the council turned away to talk in hushed tones, she glanced sideways at Mike, whose eyes sparkled with excitement. What do you think? She whispered, caught in the moment. His smile widened, infectious. I think something is breaking through, Clara. Maybe this time, they're listening. The atmosphere felt electric, the potential in the room palpable enough to taste. What if they did seize this moment? What if they managed to breathe new life into the community? But just as hope surged, Mrs. Hall cleared her throat. There's one more thing I have to share with you, Clara. It's about the land and a secret that can change everything. Clara's stomach dropped as anticipation surged. What could this secret mean for their future? What continued revelations awaited them? Mrs. Hall made her way over to Clara, her expression intent as if circling a mystery that was about to be uncovered. The council members Buzzard and Garrison remained focused on their hushed conversation, but Clara sensed the tension in the room was shifting, like a tide that promised a new dawn. The land, Mrs. Hall began, her voice a soft murmur, but with an unnerving urgency. It holds more than we know. Clara felt her heart quicken. The elder leaned in, close enough for Clara to catch the scent of earth and wildflowers still clinging to her. The old oak tree where we gathered all those years ago. Beneath it, there's a spring water that hasn't been tapped in decades. It could change our course. It could be our lifeline. Clara's breath caught. You mean, we actually have a source of water nearby? Yes, but it's been forgotten, overshadowed by the shiny allure of new technology and methods. People stopped recognizing the value of what was in their own backyard. As Clara processed that revelation, hope washed over her like the first rain of a long drought. The spring. It was genuine and untapped potential, a kind of shortcut back to the roots of their community. How can we bring it back? She asked eagerly. We'll need to gather a team, a working group, Mrs. Hall replied. People who believe in the vision of coming together, who dig deeper than the surface. The chairs creaked as council members began to reel back into the present, their murmurs fading as they noted Mrs. Hall's intensity. Clara glanced at Mike, who looked just as stunned. The council was only just beginning to process the information about the spring when Mrs. Hall continued, we could restore that land, turn it into a community project. Think of the crops we could grow, the lives we could change. Clara's mind raced. This was more than a story, it was an invitation to action. She felt adrenaline surge through her, sparking a rush of ideas, plans, and strategies. What if we hosted a summit? Invite the farmers, the council, anyone willing to lend a hand. We need voices to champion this cause, to educate the community on what we can achieve. The chairperson allowed the murmurs to crescendo before raising a weary hand. This is a lot to take in. We need to understand the implications. Are you saying we can really depend on this underground spring? Mrs. Hall nodded confidently, her eyes barely blinking. We can hold community workshops to assess the water, teach everyone about the benefits of sustainability. This is a chance to rebuild trust, relationships, and our foundation. Clara watched as the council exchanged glances, weighing their options. The fear of failure lingered, but now it was backlit by a spark of curiosity. But what if things don't go according to plan? A voice piped up. Clara recognized it as Mrs. Wilkins, typically skeptical but undeniably influential. Then we adapt, just as we always have, Clara responded, rallying her newfound courage. Just like Mrs. Hall reminded us at ISNT about success guaranteed, but about the lessons we take with us. We can grow from the experience, every step of the way. The words hung in the air, and the council moved uneasily on their chairs. But Clara felt the stirring impact of possibility growing around her. With a few exchanges, Mrs. Hall and Clara exchanged affirming glances, their newfound bond tangible. Finally, as the room fell quiet again, Mrs. Hall took a deep breath, preparing to speak. Clara, she said, a sense of resolution filling her voice. Are you ready for the work ahead? This will take every ounce of passion you have. Clara nodded, her heart swelling with purpose. More than ready. Then let us take the first step together, but first, I need to tell you about the land's history. There are things you must understand before we move forward. The atmosphere shifted once more. Clara's stomach nodded with a mixture of fear and excitement. What history could possibly be buried beneath a seemingly innocent spring? What stories could reshape their community's future forever? Mrs. Hall glanced around the room, assuring herself they were ready to hear what she had to say. The air was thick with anticipation, and Clara leaned closer, eager to absorb every word. The land we're talking about isn't just dirt and grass, Mrs. Hall started, her voice steadying. It's rich with stories. Stories of how our ancestors lived in harmony with it, how the spring was the heart of our community, a source of life before the world became fast-paced and technology took over our lives. Clara swallowed hard. What happened to it? It didn't just vanish, Mrs. Hall admitted, her brow furrowing. People forgot. As new generations came, they didn't see it as important. But there are still those who remember, people who know how to care for it, how to respect it. It's our job to rekindle that awareness, to remind everyone how interconnected we all are. A wave of determination washed over Clara. She could see it clearly now. This wasn't merely about water. It was about rekindling lost connections, fostering a true sense of belonging. What brought this path together, Mrs. Hall? Clara asked. She hoped to evoke something deeper. Mrs. Hall's eyes sparkled with warmth. I was part of a group decades ago, young and idealistic. We held gatherings under the oak. The spring was our gathering place, where we dreamed big. But slowly, life took us away. One by one, our group fell apart as we followed individual ambitions, lost in the chaos of modern living. But now it feels different. I've sensed a resurgence, a calling. Buzzard, a council member known for his cynicism, raised an eyebrow. A calling? So we're to suddenly believe that a few drops of water will change everything? Mrs. Hall held her ground. It's not just about the water, Mr. Buzzard. It's a symbol, a reclaiming of our spirit. It's a reminder of resilience, a way forward. Clara glanced at Mike, who nodded in agreement. She felt the unity building, a collective heartbeat rising above the doubts. How do we start? Clara asked, her voice steady, fueled by newfound purpose. We begin with education. We need to connect with local farmers and environmentalists. They have knowledge to share about sustainable practices. We host meetings, spread the word, and gradually ease fears. If they see the value, if they feel the energy of that water, then they'll be drawn to it. The spring will awaken something inside them. Mrs. Hall's eyes flickered with inspiration, the rumblings of discussion ignited. Clara could practically taste the rhetoric of change-building momentum around her. Each word was a heartbeat, alive and vibrant, encouraging the council to visualize the potential lying before them. Clara took a deep breath, hesitantly taking the reins. What if we start by organizing a community festival? A day of activities promoting sustainability and encouraging involvement. We can have demonstrations, speeches, and as a centerpiece, we'll introduce the concept of the Spring's revival. A sudden silence fell over the group as they processed the invitation to engage. The idea sparked an array of unsure reactions. I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves, someone finally said, rekindling a touch of skepticism. But Clara saw the flicker of excitement in the corners of their eyes. If she could just hold on to that flicker, maybe it would ignite a fire. Even if it's just seeds we plant for now, she replied, her voice firm. Let us plant them together. We can grow this idea into something tangible. What do you say? Mrs. Hall nodded slowly, her approval glowing like reassurance. Yet Clara could feel the weight of uncertainty still lingering in the air. Could hope truly be revived from whispers of the past? Could they all move into the future together, embracing what was once forgotten? As the discussion resumed, voices overlapping with energy and trepidation, Clara clung to the belief that change was possible even if it felt like stepping into the unknown. But in the fluttering heart of possibility, Clara's mind turned to one critical question: what hidden truths might still dwell in the shadows of the spring, waiting to be uncovered, secrets that could either bolster their efforts or threaten the fragile unity they were beginning to build. The council's chatter swirled around Clara, a blend of doubt and excitement that made her heart race. Her fingers brushed nervously against the edge of the table, the wood smooth beneath her touch, grounding her as they pushed toward a moment of change. She couldn't shake the feeling that something more awaited them in this endeavor. Mrs. Hall stood, a beacon of experience among newer faces. We would all bring something unique to this festival, she declared, her voice opening doors. Every person in this room has knowledge and passion. Let's begin by dividing into teams based on interests. We can organize the event more effectively that way. Clara glanced at Mike again. His brow was furrowed, but there was a flicker of enthusiasm in his eyes. She took a leap, raising her hand. I'll coordinate with the farmers. I know a few who can provide organic produce and perhaps some speakers. The floodgates opened. I can handle logistics, Mike announced quickly, jumping in before any hesitations could form. I'll take on marketing, piped up a woman from the back of the room, her energy igniting a chorus of agreement. Buzzard grumbled but begrudgingly offered to handle the town permits. As the voices melded into one another, Clara's heart swelled. An idea formed, a vivid image of the spring, alive with laughter and the sound of children splashing in water, surrounded by banners that proclaimed unity and hope. But a nagging thought weighed on her. They could brainstorm all they wanted, but what about the city council's hidden motives? Would they support this festival or crush it under bureaucratic nonsense? As if reading Clara's mind, Mrs. Hall turned to her. It won't be easy, but remember, every movement worth fighting for has faced obstacles. Clara nodded, but anxiety twisted in her stomach as she thought of the council's upcoming meeting. What if they don't see the value? She whispered, almost to herself. What if all of this is for nothing? Clara, remember why we're doing this, Mrs. Hall said gently, her eyes warm. Hope starts small. It often grows best amid the shadows, nurtured by those who believe it can thrive. The words settled into Clara's heart, soothing the edges of her worry. Perhaps they were on the brink of something substantial, a bridge connecting generations, a revival of pride in their community. As the meeting wrapped up, Clara lingered behind, a map of the festival layout dawning in her mind. The potential was jaw-dropping. She could envision tents bursting with life, workshops showcasing local artisans, and a stage echoing the voices of those who carried the land's legacy. Yet, amid all the excitement, a question trailed her thoughts. What about the stories, the ones long buried under a veil of silence? Clara knew there had to be more that called to them from the depths of the spring. Suddenly, a voice interrupted her thoughts. Clara? It was Mike, his expression serious. Can I talk to you for a moment? Clara felt her pulse quicken. Was it about the festival? Or something deeper? Sure, she said, trying to sound calm, while 1,000 questions swirled in her mind. As they stepped outside, the sun dipped low in the sky, washing their small town in hues of orange and purple. The air felt electric, charged with potential. Listen, Mike started, the look in his eyes conveying urgency. There's something I found out about the spring. It's not just history. It's something else, something I don't think the others know. Clara's heart sank, a mix of anticipation and anxiety. What could he possibly have discovered that would change everything? Let us talk, she insisted, drawn toward the unexpected turn of their conversation. Together, they moved toward the unknown, ready to uncover the truths lurking beneath the surface, truths that could shape not only the festival but the very fate of their community ahead. As they walked along the winding path beside the spring, Clara's thoughts raced. The golden hue of sunset bathed everything in warmth, but the uncertainty in Mike's tone pulled her in the opposite direction. What did you find? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, almost swallowed by the rustling leaves. Mike stopped abruptly, turning to face her with intensity. It's about the water. There are historical accounts of it being special. Healing, even. Clara's breath hitched. Special? How do you mean? Mike shifted his weight, the tension coiling between them. It seems people claim they've experienced profound changes after coming into contact with it. There's this old legend about the spring. They said it used to bring a lot of life to the town before things changed. Things changed. Clara could feel her heart thumping loud in her chest. Yeah, he said, glancing around to make sure no one else was nearby. People stopped believing in it after the droughts. They let the story fade. But some of the oldest residents, those who still remember, talk about the spring's power. Do you think it could be true? Clara asked, grappling with the weight of his words. That it could have some kind of healing or revitalizing quality? I think it's possible, he replied cautiously. And if we can tap into that belief, it could be the heart of our festival, the reason people come back together. But it could also draw the wrong kind of attention. Clara's mind raced. Could they really stand to lose something that might breathe life back into their town? Everything was hanging on the precipice, ready to either ignite hope or lead to ruin. What do you mean by the wrong kind? Mike looked away, scuffing his shoe against the dirt path. I've heard rumors about land developers who want to buy up the spring. They don't care about the history, just what they can take. A wave of anger surged through Clara. That's awful. But we can't let them. This festival could shine a spotlight on the spring's importance to the community again. Exactly. That's why we need to rally everyone and get them excited. But if we do this wrong? The weight of his words hung heavy. They needed to tread carefully, balancing the hope of reviving the town against the threat of losing it altogether. Clara felt her resolve strengthen. Then we need to care for the stories, Mike. This has to be about more than just the festival. It's about reminding everyone of what the spring means to us. She could see the flicker of admiration in his eyes, but uncertainty still loomed. Do we have enough time to pull this off? The council meets next week. Clara squared her shoulders, her spirit rising. Time is tighter than ever, but we can make this work. Together, with the right stories and the right people, we can present something that speaks to them. As they rounded a bend in the path, the full moon started to rise over the horizon, illuminating the water's surface like diamonds shining against the night. It felt magical, charged with potential. She wondered what else lay buried beneath its surface. Suddenly, an idea sparked in her mind. What if we collect stories from the townspeople? Memories of what the spring used to be, how it affected their lives. That could infuse the festival with meaning. Mike nodded, a smile breaking through his earlier tension. We could set up listening stations, encouraging everyone to share. Excited, Clara pressed onward. Then, when we present to the council, it won't just be numbers and logistics, it will be powerful voices that can't be ignored. But as her heart lifted, shadows lurked in the corners of her mind. What if the council dismissed them anyway? What if it wasn't enough? Just promise me we'll stay vigilant, Mike murmured. I feel like we may be up against something we can't predict. Clara turned to him, locking eyes. Then let us embrace it. Whatever is hidden in the spring, let us bring it to light. But we have to do it together. A shared determination formed a connection between them, deepening as they set their sights on the future. But Clara could feel the weight of the unknown settling just behind them. There was more to this than they understood, and as they prepared for the journey ahead, they could only guess at what awaited them. Do you think the council will accept our proposal? Clara asked, hesitating at the uncertainty that loomed over them like fog. Maybe, Mike replied, his tone serious. But we have to be ready for anything, Clara. I don't think they'll go down without a fight. As they walked back toward the gathering dusk, the air thick with possibility, Clara wondered if they were truly prepared for what lay ahead. And, more importantly, what secrets the spring still held, waiting silently beneath its shimmering surface. The bright sun filtered through the leaves, dappling Clara's backyard with warmth and hope. Today was the day. The community festival had transformed from an idea into reality, igniting a fire within Willow Creek. Clara moved between tents bustling with life, laughter echoing around her. Each voice reminded her of the path they had taken, the unity they were building. This wasn't just an event, it was a revival. With her heart soaring, Clara paused by the old oak tree. It stood proud and tall, like a sentinel to their stories. Memories flooded back of her grandmother sitting beneath its branches, weaving tales of resilience and strength that felt just as vibrant today. It all led her to this moment. Across the festival grounds, Clara spotted Mike, his laugh mingling with their neighbors. He was different now, energized, part of this new heartbeat of Willow Creek. She smiled, a warmth blooming in her chest. After months of doubt and hardship, they had found common ground. Echoes of a bell rang out, calling everyone to the main stage. It was time to share the heart of the festival, the discovery about the spring. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady as she took the microphone. Welcome, everyone. Today is about celebrating our past and embracing our future together. We've come together as a community to uplift each other, to remember the strength that lies in our roots. The crowd leaned in, curiosity glimmering in their eyes. Clara continued, our old spring hidden and forgotten holds incredible power. We stand on the verge of reviving this place, not just in spirit, but in the connections we create. A ripple of excitement surged through them. As she spoke, Clara saw Mrs. Hall in the background, nodding with pride. We all remember stories shared, laughter streaming under these trees. It's this very soil that nurtured hopes and dreams. A collective murmur of agreement filled the air. Suddenly, Tom jumped up, waving his hands. Let us hear some stories. Everyone, come up and share your memories about the spring. The crowd buzzed in excitement. A wave of energy surged as more and more people began to step forward. Voices tangled together, weaving the fabric of their shared history. There was laughter, nostalgia, and some tears, but above all, there was unity. Clara felt her heart swell with every story shared. This was what they needed, a reminder of their strength together. Then came her moment of truth. She felt the urge to turn the tide. And together, we can restore the spring. She announced, the words ringing triumphantly. It's not just about bringing back water, it's about reconnecting with our roots. Cheers erupted, vibrations of hope rippling through the crowd. Clara saw confidence shining in Mike's eyes, a reflection of their journey together. No longer were they just siblings divided by doubt, they were partners in this fight for their community. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, Clara stood there before everyone. Will you join me? Let us restore our spring, not as individuals, but as a family. Echoes of yes filled the air, merging into a powerful chorus that echoed across Willow Creek. But amid the excitement, a thought lingered: what if the council resisted? This was still an uphill battle. Clara felt that familiar knot of anxiety, but it was only a whisper against the symphony of hope flooding the festival. Moments after the crowd dispersed to celebrate, she caught a glimpse of the town council members. They lingered at the edge, watching. Clara took a deep breath and approached them. I know you've had questions about our plans. We're serious about this spring. It's not just a festival, it's our lifeline for the future. The chairperson nodded, expressions of skepticism softening ever so slightly. We see the passion here today, but it'll take more than enthusiasm. I understand, Clara replied, the fire in her belly igniting once more. This is not just a festival, we need permits, we need your support. But more importantly, we need you to believe in Willow Creek again. This town isn't just a place on a map, it's a tapestry. Woven together by hearts and histories. The members exchanged glances, considering her words. Let us set a meeting, the councilperson finally said, a note of intrigue in their voice. We want to hear everything. All the stories. Relief washed over Clara, tinged with excitement. Yes, this was the moment they'd been waiting for, the bridge between the hope of the community and the authority that could help them revive it. As Clara walked away, she felt like she stood on solid ground at last. Mike joined her, a sly grin on his face. You did it, Clara. They're listening. Well, we all did it, she corrected him, minding their collective fight. This is just the beginning. There's so much more to uncover. Together they watched their friends and neighbors gather around the food stalls and games, their laughter echoing against the landscape. The festival was a success, illuminating the way forward. Through every stray path and hidden memory, Clara knew the town would rise together, stronger than before. And as she watched their community flourish, she spoke the silent truth that resonated in her heart: Willow Creek had found its voice again, connected through stories, resilience, and hope, just waiting to find its wings. But as the night faded, Clara felt a new urgency bubble within her. Life was waiting on the other side, and it demanded action. So now, don't let this moment pass you by. Subscribe immediately to join us on this journey of transformation and resilience. Leave a like now to help our story reach even more hearts. Comment below your thoughts and let us know how this story resonated with you. Share this video instantly with 5 friends who need to hear these powerful tales of hope. Let us spread the light together. We need your support because together, we can harness the stories that change lives.